What's going on, guys? Back to working on the Jeep today. I know it has been a while since I posted last. I was busy traveling. However, I did mention something about long arms in my last video, which means today I'm going to be starting my long arm project. My Jeep, it pretty much needs this. It's ready for it. I've got Dana 44s in the front and the rear. I've got 37-inch tires. Got a freaking LS in this thing that is almost done. Long arms are just the next logical big project to do. Why long arms? Long arms are going to give me a better ride on the road and off-road. It's time for them. If we take a look real quick at my current control arms, there's quite an angle there, which is kind of it's affecting my ride and my flex. But if we take a look at Ben's, for example, he's got some long arms. He has a nice flat, there's no angle, it's just flat. So that is what I'm going for. Now I'm going to get the Jeep pulled in the garage. It is hot out here and I'm getting delirious, and we're gonna take a look at what kit I'm going with.
Burnout.
Yeah. Check out the spider webs in the freaking cup holder. This is disgusting. So when it comes to long arms, there are a ton of different companies that make them and a lot of different kits out there on the market. However, I decided to go with the Barnes 4-wheel drive long arm kit made for a TJ or an LJ. It is one of their newer kits, and it's a DIY kit, which means it comes with everything I need to make my own long arms. Now Max is over here. He's ready to help me. We are going to unpack all of this stuff. It's all saran wrap. We need to take it all out, throw it on the table, and see what all this kit comes with. We got everything laid out on the table, and as you can tell, it is definitely a DIY kit. Got my DOM tubing, got all my brackets, I've got my Heim joints, and my heavy duty skid plate over there on the floor. Now the cool thing about it...
It's heavy. It's heavy duty. It's heavy and it's duty.
You ready to go?
That's for sure.
Now the cool thing about this kit is that even though it is a DIY kit, it is designed for an LJ or a TJ, so everything should tap into place in the install, and it should be a pretty clean look.
Super clean.
At the very end. Now, another cool thing about having a DIY kit is that you can customize it to what you want. So for example, I already have a 2-inch stretch in the front here, which means I can design my control arms to be 2 inches longer if I needed to, or whatever your rig.
You just stretch it 120 inches. Just out there.
Most of you guys have probably heard of Barnes 4-wheel drive. They make a ton of DIY stuff and Jeep specific stuff. For example, I'm running their rear swap truss kit in the rear of my axle as if I'd run it anywhere else. Ben's running their 3-link, and we also have a ton of other stuff from them. Now they have partnered with the channel to give you guys a 10% discount code with the code JeepGear. Listen up though, it is for a one-time use and you have to have an account with them. I'll put all of the details to that in the video description below, so make sure you check it out and use it wisely. Now, we don't actually have everything. FedEx lost a box, but on the bright side, it's just a couple Heim joints and a bracket for the front. But that doesn't stop me from getting started on this project tonight. First things first is that we are going to get started on some of these brackets. Now, Barnes has it is the most detailed install thing on their website. It's 13 pages.
It tells you step by step.
Step by step what to do.
Put this here. Well, tack weld.
Tack weld, boom, measure everything up. So take a look at that if you're using this kit and follow it step by step. It is fantastic. But let's get this project going. Bust out the welder, weld up one of these frame cap assemblies, and show you how it's gonna look under the Jeep.
Dimes.
Went ahead and got one of these welded together. These are the frame cap assemblies. Now, these are the main support, or the main hub of our control arms and our skid plate, and our skid plate holds up the transmission. So this is a very important piece. It needs to be very, very strong. Now, the first thing I did is I welded on these rectangle pieces, the flanges. This is what our skid plate is gonna screw into. So I welded all the way around to make sure this is very strong and can hold up all of that weight.
Imagine your transmission, just skid plate and transmission.
That's what I can't imagine that happening on the trail or something. All right, so on the other side here, this is where our lower control arm mounts are. Now, I didn't do this one because I wanted to kind of show you guys. So these pieces, they literally just tab in, and then you just tack weld them on and weld them all the way. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing that without putting a spacer in. So I'm using an extra Heim joint, and then I'm also adding a washer. What am I talking about? Adding a washer, and I'm gonna put this in here, bolt it up. That way you have enough space when this is done being welded. It's not gonna warp. You'll have enough room to put these on when you're
pull it in and out. I made that mistake on mine, on one of mine. I think I forgot the washer, and I just put the Heim joint in there and you weld it up, and then
so it's super tight to get in and out?
Yeah, to get in, I had to grind a little bit of the spacer out.
Ugh, I believe it. Ugh, no, so yeah, so use a spacer for sure. So we're gonna do that on both sides as we did here, and then also come with little joint skid plates as well. So I went ahead and welded those pieces up. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get this one done because then we can actually put these under the Jeep, under the frame, and start mounting them up and mounting up our upper control arm brackets. Sorry, lots of moving pieces here. On the other side, start mounting all of this up to the Jeep and the frame. Finally finished welding together the lower control arm mounts to the frame caps. Now while I was at it, I went ahead and welded together my front upper control arm mount. Oh, that is still hot. It was just 2 brackets. They tabbed together. I welded them into place, and then don't forget your spacer in here so it doesn't warp together and then you can't fit your joint in. But what I have not mentioned up until this point is that I'm going with a 3-link in the front and a 4-link in the rear. So I've got my 2 lowers in my front and my 1 upper in the front. Then in the rear, I've got my lowers, which are still gonna go straight, but I'm going triangulated uppers in the rear. What does that mean? That means I'm going to be able to ditch the track bar, goodbye, and my uppers are going to be in a V shape, which means it's going to give me more flex, and the axle will no longer sway or move to the side, which is going to be really, really nice. Now the very next steps on this are going to be dropping the skid plate over here. Then we need to mock these up under the Jeep because we need to be able to tab. We're gonna tack weld my upper control arm mounts in the rear and then this bracket up here in the front and make sure they are snug next to the frame. So let's get that skid plate dropped and get these mocked up under the Jeep. Of course, here comes Max. It's like, ready to play fetch? Man, we went to the beach this morning. It was a nice break from all the welding we did yesterday, but I'm really looking forward to finishing this up so we can drive this Jeep to the beach instead of the freaking car. There we go. This is like the ideal vehicle to like pull to the beach in. Jeep, it's classic. Got the skid plate out of here. Jack stands holding up the transmission. Now along the driver's side on the frame, we got all our fuel lines, so just kind of push those up out of the way and they just kind of hang out right up there, top of like part of the transfer case. So next thing I'm going to do is grab the frame cap for this side and 2 screws. Will you pass me some?
Yes.
Not screws, they're bolts.
Oh, you almost had the bolt fall and hit your face, and then that. It would have been a double whammy.
You know what? Yeah, pass me the bolt. Fine. Yeah. I'm gonna tighten these up and then do the same thing on the other side. Got these on. Now we need to tab and tack weld our upper control arm mounts to the frame cap. So this one is in here. It's tabbed in, but we need to make sure it's also pressed nicely against the frame because we are going to be welding it to the frame eventually. So gonna throw some tack welds on this one, the front one, and the other rear one. And then we're gonna take it back off and completely weld these into the frame cap. So got lots to do. Let's keep it moving.
Roll over.
I can't.
Just roll over.
Me. I sounded like a monkey.
Yeah, you did.
But look at that beautiful tack weld. I'm going to be shopping for some nice women's welding jackets. If I find one, I will throw one in the video description below. I'm scarred for life. That was too close to the twins, man. Too close. Got these 2 pieces back on the table because it's time to fully weld on my upper control arm mounts. They are tacked in, but time to fully weld them on. Now before I took them off of the Jeep, I forgot to mention that while they were mocked up here, we made sure it was pressed up firmly against the frame. It had a nice line, so we are going to paint, or we painted along here because this is where I'm eventually going to weld those caps to the frame. Now obviously we've got to grind it down first, but now we know exactly where we'll need to do that. But first, it's time to crack the welder out. Whoops, Minnie, you are in the way. Time to crack the welder out because got some more welding to do. Got some big beads in there. I didn't want it to fall off. So we went ahead and bolted the frame caps to the frame. Now at this point, we're gonna weld, we're obviously welding them on, but we're not gonna weld the entire thing, right? We're just gonna kind of weld in like 2 to 3 inch increments, I think. Now on the back side, we're gonna weld the upper control arm mounts completely to the frame, unlike this side where we're just gonna kind of do it in increments. Went ahead and finished welding both frame caps to the frame. Now I know this video has been a ton of welding up until this point. Let me know in the comments below if you'd be interested in me doing a kind of like a DIY, not DIY, like a beginner welder video or beginner welding video. Kind of just showing you guys some like self-taught things that I've done to be able to build myself up to doing projects such as the axle swap and doing my own long arm. So moving on, I haven't really talked about this much yet, but I want to talk about the strength of these frame caps and like the strength of this kit altogether. So this kit incorporates all of the control arm mounts into this frame cap assembly, which means all of the stress and the load is going to be distributed throughout this whole section of the frame. Whereas if we just kind of mounted and welded on this lower control arm mount just to the frame, it's the stress and load are centralized to just that section, unlike over here where it's distributed throughout the whole, this like 2-foot piece of steel or to this whole section of the frame. Now I haven't talked about what joints come with this kit. This kit comes with all Heim joints, and I kind of have a little example set up right here, but I kind of need Ben, cameraman.
I'm ready to work. I'm ready to work.
Oh, did you just steal those from our kids?
I got my working shirt, got all my tools. I'm cameraman. Cameraman.
So this whole kit comes with Heim joints. Now Heim joints are going to offer us like the most misalignment or flex or whatever term you want to use. And you can kind of have an example here. So I've got my Heim joint and I've got a Johnny joint example. So if you take a look here, look at all that.
It actually doesn't look like that much more on camera. Yeah, it does.
Does it? I don't know. I'm not looking at it because you're doing it.
Put it straight. Yeah, there's more.
Yes, way more. So this one is all metal. So this one, it's not going to offer as much vibration resistance, but it is going to give us more of that misalignment, which is kind of what we want, especially with this long arm kit. We want everything we can get. Off-road potential. That's the point of doing this, right? Whereas the Johnny joint is not going to offer as much, but they do have, these do have like 2 like rubber pieces inside of them, so it's going to offer more of that vibration resistance, which is what some people probably like if they're using it more as a daily driver.
And what you could do, like in the future, is like on my setup, is put like one of these on one of the ends. Right, you can always change your joints out later on if you wanted to, but I mean, it's not like the Heim joint, it's just all the way to work. It's really not that bad. I feel like a lot of people over exaggerate it. They're like, oh, Heim joints, there's no vibration resistance. Well, I mean, that's why you have what? You have rubber tires and like. That's what all the other stuff's for. You got your shocks. I mean, there's a difference, but it's not like the Flintstones on the way to work. Yeah, it's really not that bad. These are the joints that come with the kit, all Heim joints for the win. Last thing I don't think we've talked about yet are these skid plates, or the old skid plate, the new skid plate. Ben, can you pick these up? I'll take the camera back. I don't want to lift all these. I'll bring the muscle in. It's heavy too. It is. So the difference between these two is the Barnes kit, the skid plate is freaking, it's thick. You can't really see the thickness and the difference, but I mean, yeah. I think you might be able to. So here's the factory. Here's the Barnes skid plate. It is definitely much thicker. It is a little heavier. But also too, if you notice, the Barnes skid plate is flat. Okay, so this one, our factory one, look at all these different ridges, okay? When you get hung up on a rock, which we have in the past, I mean, you have to get past each freaking section when your belly's rubbing, right? So, and you can see on here, we've painted this a couple of times. Whereas this one, it's nice and flat, so you're just kind of gonna, not gonna just ride over it, but it's gonna be a little bit. It'll be more like the rock. It'll just like, it'll kind of grind its way across. Where that it's like grinding and bumping. Yeah. Right. So also this kit, where's the measuring tape? Get the measuring tape because it does. I think we measured it earlier. You get about 1.5 inches more ground clearance without doing a tummy tuck. No tummy tuck. All like the tummy tuck. If you want to do a tummy tuck in this, I think a lot of people told you to do a tummy tuck. Tons of people told me to do a tummy tuck. Motor mounts to raise it up. Motor mounts, and then you have to worry about your drive shaft angles, and then you have to do a body lift. Yeah. And then you have to get the kit. So it's just, I don't think it was worth it. I think this is definitely more like the smarter idea to go with. Where's the highest point on this one? Probably right there. So we're at what, 3 1/4? I guess I should have done this on the ground, right? Oh! Which is 4 3/4. Yep. So what is that? 1.5 inches. You get about 1.5 inches extra, which is pretty cool for not having to do a tummy tuck. Yep. With all that said, it is time to bolt up the skid plate and actually start building our links, or putting together and building the control arms for this control arm kit. The actual long arm part of the long arms. We're gonna need our saw and a drill. Let's get the skid plate on. Building control arms is pretty simple. We're gonna grab our measuring tape. First thing we're gonna do is measure from the center of the bolt on the axle side all the way up to the center of the hole on our new bracket. Looks like 32 inches. We're gonna lay out our measuring tape, grab 2 Heim joints, a left hand and a right hand thread, and then we're gonna thread the bung on until it's about right in the middle.
We're gonna lay this one over at 0, put it about right in the center of where the bolt would go. We're gonna center the bung on this one and put it at 32 or whatever your measurement was. Gonna grab your DOM tubing and you're gonna line it up on one side with the flat part of the bung. Then you're gonna come over to the other side, and typically your tubing will go further, so you would just mark it and cut your tubing. But I got lucky in this case and mine lines up perfectly. Next, I'm gonna grab the grinder and I'm going to bevel both sides of the tubing. Now the reason we bevel it is so that when we stick our bung in, we get more surface area for welding. So I'm gonna throw some tack welds on here and then weld completely around the bung. Then we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. I'm gonna let this tubing cool off, then I'm gonna clean it up, paint it, and then thread both of my joints in on each side, and this control arm is done. Now I'm gonna do the same thing for the other side. However, for the front upper, I'm going to do the same thing on one side of the tubing, but on the other, I've got a fixed end that I'm just gonna put right here, weld this on, and call it done. So I'm going to get going and get the rest of these control arms done. That way tomorrow I can hopefully get these things under the Jeep. And just like that, the control arms are done. I went ahead and painted them a steely gray to kind of tie them with the wheels and the hood louver to kind of keep the gray-black theme going on. I've also got my old Clayton control arm here just so you guys can see them in comparison. Now these were great, but obviously long arms are the way to go. Now the next step would be to replace your front axle bushing, especially for you TJ guys that are still running a TJ axle. You have to replace your bushing with this one, which is a JK style bushing. This one does have a larger bolt, which is gonna make it a little bit stronger. But since I already have a JK axle on my Jeep, I can skip this step. So the next thing is going to be grabbing the Sawzall, grabbing the grinder, and chopping off the old bracket so I can finally get these new arms installed. And the front is done. These long arms look so good on this thing, and the angle looks a lot better, and I'm really liking the steelite gray too. Finishing up the front was easy. Just bolted the control arms in, and the front is good to go. Now talking about the rear though, a big part of this project was getting these frame caps assembled and welded on. That took up a lot of time, so doing the rear shouldn't take that long. Now I'm going with the triangulated upper in the rear, so I'm gonna have to weld on 2 brackets on the axle side, obviously weld together my links, but also we're gonna have to reroute the exhaust because it is completely in the way, but I'm not gonna worry about that right now because that is for another video. Now don't forget guys, the code JEEPGEAR gets you 10% off at Barnes 4-Wheel Drive. Check out the link in the description below for all the information on that. The next video is probably going to be finishing up this project, but also guys, I officially have everything I need to finish the wiring for the LS swap. So that will be coming up soon as well. I'm really excited about that. As always, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and there's more to come. As always, my name's Cassie, and keep Jeeping classy.